morning, everyone. It's so lovely to have you all here this evening and this morning for a bit of a coffee catch up. It's really exciting that we had Gretchen and Kim as our first American guests that returned to Zim, and that we've got this bit of an opportunity just to catch up with you guys and hear all about your experience on the ground and your thoughts on travel right now. So thank you so much for your time. For those that don't know me, I'm Hayley Plaskett and I'm the Marketing and Sales Director for Imvelo Safari Lodges. And we had Gretchen and Kim come and spend 9 nights with us down in Hwange. They traveled to our remote Southwest camp, Joseph Benini, where they started off their safari, and then headed up to the famed Ngamo Plains and spent 4 nights at Bimani and Camelthorne, and then took the Elephant Express rail car and finished off with a couple of nights in the north of Hwange and Nahemba before heading on to the falls. So it was a really immersive, wonderful Hwange safari, and we're just really excited to hear a bit of a first-hand account. So how does it feel being back? Do you, are you guys missing Africa? Gretchen?
I'm certainly missing Africa. Just the freedom of feeling safe and being in nature constantly was wonderful, and being back to a North American winter in the United States leaves a little bit to be desired just now.
And Kim, are you feeling relaxed and restored after your little breakaway?
Very much. It was definitely needed after the year that I think we've all had. And yes, I always miss Africa when I'm back here. So yeah, it was the perfect getaway to just sort of reboot, I think, after this tough year.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, and I'm glad that we were able to deliver on that. Mm-hmm. So I know, sorry, I am jumping the gun a bit. I should have actually said Gretchen is Gretchen Healey, and Gretchen is coming to us this morning from Denver. And Gretchen is actually part of our team. So she works with the Cassini collection with Tad. And so she was our intrepid heroine that came out from the States to show us all that travel is possible and that it is a restorative and wonderful thing to be doing in the near future when people do feel safe. And Kim is a wonderful friend all the way from Michigan, and is part of Globe Trotter Travel, and so it was wonderful that she actually came out with her husband and a couple of her friends. So there were 7 in total traveling. So it was great to have a nice crowd back on the ground and put some smiles on our guides' faces. And it was, I know they were thrilled to have our international guests back with us. So definitely we thank you for that. So let's dive straight in. We want to hear all about your experiences. So overall, what would you say in terms of advice or tips for anyone that is planning a trip in the near future to Africa? Let's start with you, Kim.
Yeah, I would say do your research, or if you work with a travel professional, you know, they certainly have that knowledge, especially just to make sure that you're choosing a destination that that has low COVID numbers, that has precautions in place. I think Imvelo did a fantastic job. I mean, I never once felt unsafe at all. They were taking every precaution every time we came back from a game drive. So certainly research, or having your travel professional do that research for you, and to persevere. I mean, we all know, being avid travelers ourselves, travel rarely goes 100% according to plan. There are always hiccups. There may be 1 or 2 more now with COVID precautions in place, and sort of challenges with transportation. We all know that flight schedules are reduced, and things are changing rapidly. So I would say just persevere. It is worth it in the end. There might be some hiccups on the front end, but when you are sitting in the lookup line at Joseph Benini or wherever you're at, it is worth it. All of the hiccups and challenges on the front end are worth it when you're looking at wildlife.
Absolutely. And Gretchen, any or tips from you from your trip?
Sure. I would echo Kim and say be patient, because you know things are a little unsettled right now, but with a little bit of effort you can make things work. And also, you know what you can control. when you are traveling, take your own PPE seriously, take your processes seriously, make sure whoever you're traveling to see does in fact have good protocols in place like Imvelo does. And it's absolutely doable. I think once you cover those basic things, it's absolutely doable. And it took a while to get there. It was much faster coming home, but it was worth every second on every airplane in every airport to find myself back in Hwange again.
Wonderful. I think that's really great to hear. And I think you definitely did hit, both of you, on a good point about working with reputable travel operators right now, because I think, as flight travel starts picking up again, there is going to be potential challenges with low loads or flights changing. And, if you're working with someone that knows this on the ground, I think it could definitely make your travel trip a lot smoother. And probably, as you guys have just mentioned, just pack a bit of an adventurous spirit and enjoy the time away from the routine and just being a bit more spontaneous. You know what we say when we get to Africa, you just turn off your clock. It's Africa time and you've just got to go with it and enjoy. And I think both of you definitely felt that, right?
Absolutely.
100%, yes.
You also
Awesome.
say, Haley, that you Zimbos love to say, we're always going to be able to make a plan. And I think Kim and Gretchen definitely experienced that as well, again, because there are some curveballs that come at us during these times. And Imvelo did an amazing job of making a plan on several occasions with their trip. And it ended up delivering an absolutely extraordinary wildlife experience. And one that I'm getting freshly jealous of, as Kim is talking about the Josie lookup blind and their adventures in Hwange, which we'll hear more about. I just wanted to pick up on the safety aspect because Kim, you mentioned it in how you felt so safe in Zim. And Gretchen, I know your numerous blog posts and in several occasions you talked about how safe it felt there. In fact, it felt safer than being at home. So
Definitely.
Could you just expand a little bit on that feeling of safety that you felt while you were in Zim and in Hwange?
Absolutely. I have to say I've been COVID cautious really since, I would say, March 12th was the big day. I mean, the fact that I can remember the date is pretty telling. And I kind of went from going to the grocery store maybe 4 or 5 times in 7 or 8 months to getting on a plane to going to Zimbabwe, because I had a feeling, frankly, that once I got there, things would feel pretty good, based on COVID numbers, based on their case rate, based on what I knew Imvelo's protocols were. And I was 100% right. I mean, I got out of the car in Vic Falls, got collected by Bronwyn from New Frontiers, took a ride to the hotel, got into my room, took off my mask and breathed, I think, the biggest sigh of relief I've breathed in 8 months. And the amount of weight that was shed off my shoulders landing in Africa, I almost can't describe it. I hope that everyone that's ready has a chance to do this and takes the opportunity to do this. When you're out on safari, you're outdoors. You're outdoors all the time. The vehicles are open. The dining is open. You poke your head out on your veranda, you're outside again. A lot of times you're in tents. Those are open. It feels safe. Whereas we're stuck here at home right now in the winter, it's 30 degrees outside. We can go outside for an hour or two, but it's not like we can be outdoors all day. It's such a different feeling. And then to couple that with that full immersion in nature and being back in the bush and hearing the animals and seeing the landscapes and breathing the air, it's a sense of freedom that I haven't felt for the better part of the year. And I would venture that most people haven't. And it was so very needed.
And that safety factor also, of course, comes with some COVID preparations that you had to take ahead of time. So Gretchen, can you, and then Kim, maybe you can jump in after Gretchen on the COVID tests, which are required to go to Zim. Currently, it's a test that's no older than 48 hours prior to arrival. So it's a bit of a tight window, but both of you managed to do it. So tell us a little bit about how you went about getting your COVID tests, and then also about any other COVID and PPE items that you brought along for your travels.
Sure. That was a head scratcher at first, the 48-hour requirement. I thought, ooh, how am I going to pull this off? Fortunately, a friend and colleague pointed me to a group called the COVID Consultants that's actually based here in Evergreen, Colorado. Long story short, it's a FedEx operation that you take your test, either you swab or do a saliva test, you FedEx it, and they promise results within 24 hours of receipt. I actually ended up getting the results while in between my first and second flight. So I was able to show them electronically when I boarded in Chicago, and again, electronically when I arrived in Zimbabwe. Super straightforward, and they did an amazing job. I did a backup test as well, just to have, just in case. Those results actually came in later than the COVID consultants. So good thing that I did both, I guess. I knew that I wanted to travel in an N95 mask, or the consumer equivalent. I don't have a medical grade, but Costco sell boxes of 100, of course, because you can't get 10 or 20. But wearing that mask made me far more comfortable on the plane than I ever would have been in a regular surgical mask or even a cloth mask. As I said, I'm a pretty COVID cautious person, so that level of protection was important to me. I also got some eye protection, pair of glasses that had kind of a protective plastic shield around them. Just one extra step to make me feel a little more comfortable. And then what everybody else has done, Clorox wipes, hand sanitizer, that kind of thing. And I would disinfect the surfaces that I would be in contact with on every plane I boarded. And with those measures, I kind of felt like I was as much in control as I possibly could be. And I had taken every measure that I possibly could, and I could kind of sit back and relax and wait to arrive.
And Kim, how about you when you're testing?
Yeah, we also, scratched our heads a little bit up front, and Imvelo was so helpful in answering questions about, 48 hours from what time exactly. So we also did a few different tests in the days leading up to our departure, just to kind of cover ourselves. I mean, you certainly, I had a test the previous month from a different international trip, and I had known that the results came in quickly from that, but knowing that numbers were on the rise again here in Michigan, we decided to just kind of go for a few different tests the week leading up to when we left. And it all worked out. We got our results back in time. When we boarded in Chicago, 4 of the 6 of us traveling from Chicago had our printed results. 2 of us did not have results. We just had them electronically. But they took that was fine. And Imvelo, actually, we had to change our flights a little bit at the last minute. I know Gretchen did as well. Some COVID things that came up, our flights shifted, and Imvelo was so helpful in setting us up with a guy who met us when we landed in Zimbabwe. And he actually brought printed copies of our tests for us that we could show there. I don't think that we actually needed them, but it made us feel better to have them printed as well. So really it is a bit daunting, I think, but it's doable. It's certainly manageable. And I think having a backup plan in place made us, be able to travel a little bit easier. As far as PPE, a lot of the same stuff as Gretchen. We had plenty of masks. There were 6 of us traveling together, so we tried to sort of divide things up. Somebody brought Clorox wipes, somebody brought all the hand sanitizer, and we ended up having way more than we needed, but we certainly felt comfortable, and knowing that we had taken measures into our own hands, especially, I mean, I'm always the traveler that wipes down my airplane area. I've always done that, particularly now. So yeah, and then really once we got to Zimbabwe, I mean, like Gretchen said, you're in the open. We were the first international guests that Imvelo has had in months. So like at Joseph Benini, I had brought all this stuff thinking that I was going to wipe stuff down, in the tents when I got there, and did not at all feel the need to do that. Felt perfectly safe.
I think the feeling I'm getting from you guys is that, you took the precautions, but once you had that, it wasn't that stressful to actually do the traveling. So as long as you've done a little bit of homework and you've got the stuff that makes you feel comfortable, it is definitely possible to carry on with life and come and experience these beautiful parts of the world.
I think I would add one thing. I would just add one thing, Haley. After wiping down the plane seats and all the surfaces, I thought, why wasn't I doing this before COVID? Honestly, like it's kind of gross on a good day. So just, this is going to be the go forward, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I think it's been a big wake up call for a lot of us in terms of just general sanitization and hygiene and how we should all be living going forward. So I think if we take those basic principles forward, we can still carry on with our lives. And like you said, the amazing thing is you can social distance in these beautiful safari parks. Probably not from the elephant in Hwange, considering there's 45,000 of them, but certainly from other humans, which I think should give people a lot of confidence just to feel safe, that they're not going to be in crowded spaces. But moving on from that, now that you guys landed in Zim, it's interesting, and I'd love to know, we've been chatting so much about how travel is changing due to COVID, and the general trend is that people are probably going to start to travel in a very different way and maybe do less countries and more one big safari in one place. And actually the trend is that Zim can definitely offer this, especially Hwange. It has these wide open spaces, small camps, not a lot of camps, but such a lot of diversity within the park. And you guys actually chose to do that type of safari. So what are your thoughts on having just experienced 9 nights in one park? Would you recommend it going forward? Maybe Kim, if you could let us know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of times, particularly as Americans with limited time off, when we make these big trips, we want to do as much as we can, right? Like we want to add 3 countries to our list. And I don't think that we're doing ourselves any favors by doing that. I mean, certainly it's nice to add a pin to your map, but being able to spend this amount of time in one park and really do it justice. I mean, this was my 5th trip to Africa in the last 2 years. I came for the first time last year and fell in love, and this was by far my best experience, which I think is saying something given the pandemic and the state of the world. There's a few factors I attribute that to. It was a really good group. I was traveling with people I knew, and Gretchen was a great addition to our group. Hopefully she feels the same. Yeah, I mean, really being able to do justice to the park we were in, and it's a massive park. So, I mean, being able to move around from Joseph Benini down to Camelthorne and Bomani, and then over to Nahimba, it was just, every day was a different experience. And that's the case, I guess, regardless of wherever you are on safari, but every single game drive was different. We saw something different every day. And that was sort of everyone in our group sort of echoed that. Everybody else besides me and Gretchen, it was their first time on safari. But even Gretchen with her 50 plus trips and me on trip number 5, every day was different. We saw I think it was like our 2nd or 3rd to last day. I think because of the rains, and it was kind of cool for me to see that. I'd never seen the transition sort of starting from dry season into wet. So seeing after the first couple of rains, how the wildlife moved, but then also like the fire lilies blooming, that was so cool for me. And my mom and my aunt that were with me are big plant flower enthusiasts, so they loved that. So to see how things changed just within the same park, but due to the rain and things, it was amazing. And so towards the end of our trip, it was sort of a slow game drive, I guess. We weren't seeing elephants and giraffes, but we were seeing all of these toads that had come out, and it was silly. I mean, we have toads here, but not in that quantity, and so not something any of us expected to be like thrilled about seeing on safari, but it was actually really fun. And we actually saw a bird come down. Gretchen can probably name the bird, then I cannot, and take one of them. So we joked that it was the kill that we had all been wanting to see the whole trip. So absolutely, I would recommend 100% really staying and doing justice to one park, one area, because there is so much to see. And even in 9 nights, I mean, we could have spent easily twice as long. So I absolutely would recommend it.
That's great to hear. And I think I think that also plays into what Gretchen had said earlier about it being restorative, because maybe it is less air travel and less airports and, you know, having to think about less visas and, you know, all the different country restrictions, that if you can come and stay in one park that offers good value, that's a really good option for 2021 to consider. And, you know, Hwange really just does have so much diversity, from the wildlife moving, as you say, whether you're seeing your mating lions down at Bomani to, you know, your Ellies around the pool at Nahimba. I think that's a great way to do a safari. So I'm hoping more people jump on board and come and see Hwange, you know, and spend more time with us and get to know the people and the communities a lot more than, you know, perhaps they have been doing in the past. What are your thoughts on that, Gretchen?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, Hwange is such an incredibly diverse park, and your camps and Imvelo's camps are also incredibly diverse, you know, from the rustic nature of Josie Benini, which is kind of a personal favorite, although I love them all, to Bomani and Camelthorn, not very far apart, but they couldn't be further apart in terms of style and feel and experience, to Nahimba and the Ellie's drinking out of the swimming pool and the water hole and everything else. And then the scenery and the landscape diversity, the wildlife concentration diversity, and the especially, as Kim referred to, the being on the cusp of the green season, kind of seeing that change, going from that late dry season urgency for water to the elephants, you know, a couple days later actually spending the time to play in the water hole a bit instead of just sort of desperately drinking water, was pretty magical to see. So yeah, I think 9 nights in Hwange is a no-brainer. I think, to Kim's point, longer in Hwange is a no-brainer. It's such a low stress way to go, because once you're in, and your transfers are either charter or they are by an open air vehicle. There's none of that necessity of the COVID protocol and wiping things down and worrying about what you're going to need and how you're going to enter and doing the, you know, entry forms and that sort of thing. It's, you know, it's minor COVID protocols that are very well thought out, but that after a day become completely unobtrusive. You know, when I came home, I was able to say to my husband, yeah, I had my temperature taken 2 to 3 times every single day. I used hand sanitizer more in the 3 weeks on safari than I've probably used in my whole life. But I felt completely confident and completely safe. And it wasn't something I thought about after that initial day. So,
and I think that's going to be a big thing going forward, is like traveling with Imvelo for 9 nights. You know, you're with one company that has all the COVID protocols in place. You're not jumping around and having to start again and understand, you know, do they have the same standards and are they following the same things? So I think that also takes a lot of the stress out of it by moving around with one company. I think that's probably a positive of that.
Definitely.
You guys are, you touched on it a bit, Gretchen, the different properties, and, you know, Imvelo has their 4 different properties, Josie in the far south, Camelthorn and Bomani on the Ngamo Plains in the southeast corner, and then Nahimba up in the north central part of the park. You know, Hwange, as again, has been alluded to, huge park, 5,000 square miles, incredibly diverse landscapes and sceneries and wildlife diversity. But then there is the diversity of the different camps, as you mentioned briefly, Gretchen. Maybe Kim, if you could tell us, if you can identify a favorite of the 4, and maybe a highlight from a few of them or from each of those 3 areas that your group had while you were on safari.
Yeah, absolutely. Every camp was so unique. If I had to pick a favorite, I think Bomani, the setting was just gorgeous. The tents are beautiful, which is not at all my priority when I'm going on safari. Like, I'm the person that I could be in the game vehicle all day, every day, and be happy, and am very happy. But Bomani just stands out to me. I would go back there in a heartbeat. Joseph Benini was fantastic. The lookup blind there is probably, I kept telling everybody else that I'm in my group, because it was their first trip. I was like, don't get used to this being the norm. If you're going to come back to Africa for safari, which most people go once and fall in love and want to keep coming back, because the elephant experience at Joseph Benini was mind-blowing, which, you know, I had sort of known going into it, but that was my first lookup blind experience. And it was fantastic. I mean, we spent hours in that blind for 2 days. We were lucky to have 3 nights at Joseph Benini, so we got 2 evenings in the lookup blind, and just amazing. Never in my life thought I would be that close to so many elephants. And elephants are my favorite animals, so so for me that was really special. Also, that was my first, Joseph Benini was my first bucket shower experience. I had done outdoor showers before, but I'd heard about bucket showers. And that was our first time. And it was awesome. It was so just unique and rustic. And again, after the year I think we've all had, just kind of nice to get out and, you know, not, I mean, just, it sounds like a silly thing, I think, to highlight, but just how natural everything is, and how, you know, how much I think it put things into perspective. You know, we sort of as Americans are, you know, we don't know how good we have it, and just sort of realizing like this is all we need. It was just so great. So Joseph Benini stands out for the elephant experience, the setting at Bomani. The first night we were there, tons of wildebeest came in to drink. And it was just awesome. Actually, 2 of our party had just left to go to their room, so they missed it. And I showed them the video the other day, and they were just like blown away that they would have missed that in a few minutes, having gone to their room. Camelthorn, again, being like Gretchen mentioned, so close to Bomani, but from a setting perspective, couldn't be more different. In the forest, and those plunge pools on the 2nd level, those were perfection. So that was a highlight for me at Camelthorn. And then of course Nahimba, the elephants at the pool, particularly our last night there, they set up dinner for us on the patio, and there were, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 elephants that came in while we were eating dinner, and we're drinking from the watering hole and the pool. It was just fantastic. So 4 camps, everyone unique in its own way. And I'm so glad we got to do all 4 of them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Gretchen, any special highlights from you?
All of them. Look, one of my favorite things in the whole world is to sleep out under the stars. Our first night in Josie, we had the most beautiful, spectacular, incredible raw display of nature thunderstorm that I had ever seen up to that point. It got bested a couple days later, oh, by the way, which was awesome. The second night, there were lions nearby, but the third night, I got to sleep out on the deck. And just that experience of really nothing between you and nature, no mosquito net, not needed there. Just the stars and the sounds of the elephant at the water hole, a hyena in the distance. It fills my heart. So that was probably one of my biggest highlights. But also, to Kim's point, the lookup blind is just mind-boggling. I had seen it before. I had seen it in October before. But just that show, the elephants running in, literally running into the water hole, it's astonishing to see. And the jockeying for position and the noises they make. Kim's group were convinced they had heard lions the first night. They said, oh no, there was growling. It was like, it's probably elephants. Sure enough, it was. And I don't think anybody that's ever experienced it would know. Everybody thinks of the trumpet, but the number of noises that the elephants make that we can actually hear, because of course there's so many more, is nothing short of astonishing. And being in that lookup blind gives you that really intimate view and audio experience. So that's really special as well. And then to do that full day drive, or the full afternoon drive up to the Ngamo Plains, and then come upon not one, but 2 different sets of mating lions was pretty awesome. And it was windy that afternoon. So one of the males was just majestically, like, chin up, letting his mane blow back and posing for us, which was epic. And honestly, the bullfrog, the yellow-billed kite that came down and swept up the bullfrog that afternoon was pretty cool. So
I was
yeah,
gonna ask you.
I can't give you one highlight because it's all one highlight.
Oh, makes me want to be there right now. I don't know about you, Tad. I'm feeling quite jealous.
If you want an illustration, for those of you watching that don't know about the lookup blinds and you want an illustration right now, the kind of photos you can get, just look over my right shoulder. Most of those photos are taken from the lookup blind. There's two of them. Of course, there's one at Josie. There's also one near Camelthorne and Bomani. And the kind of photographs that non-professionals can get from those lookup blinds are, well, just look over my shoulder. Those are non-professional photos. But yeah, you guys, again, you're making me very, very jealous. Josie's lookup blind is extraordinary. So I'm so glad you had such an amazing experience there, despite how jealous it makes me feel.
Something that's very close to Imvelo's heart is our partnerships with our communities. And, this has been an extremely challenging year on the ground for the communities and for the wildlife. And it's something Imvelo have really put our heart and soul in. It's our ethos. We do it, pre-COVID, but this year specifically has been something that we've really been very passionate about continuing to support the communities, because this is the year they need us more than ever. And I just wondered, what were some of your experiences when you actually spoke to the communities and the headmen and you got the opportunity to see the work that's being done down there that Imvelo is involved in? Kim, maybe if you could let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, so much that Imvelo does. I think that a lot of times, and I see this with my clients, for Americans, I think that safari seems like a once in a lifetime thing, right? So people come to me and they're looking for my advice on where to go. And certainly I think that a lot of times they get sticker shock. They see the price and they're like, oh my gosh. But once you are on safari, and this is no different with Imvelo, you're there. And of course, we were fortunate to spend time with Mark Whitmer, and he really, treated us at dinner, the 2 evenings we spent with him, to more than I think maybe the average person would get. But so much that goes into where your money is being spent when you're going on safari. So like the Cobra anti-poaching unit, we spent a morning there, and it was fantastic. It was so informative. And our guide, Sibs, is a wealth of knowledge as well. So throughout our 9 nights, 10 days with Sibs, the information that he shared with us about anti-poaching and things that, it's just a learning experience. So, talking with the anti-poaching unit and spending the morning there and seeing how, despite the fact that they haven't really had international visitors all year, all of the good that they're still doing. I mean, they're still active. They're still doing the work there, despite the fact that there may not be tourism dollars coming in like there would have been in previous years. So that was fascinating. I know particularly one of the, both of the other gentlemen in our group, my husband as well, particularly enjoyed spending that time with the Cobra's anti-poaching unit and hearing about everything they're doing. That was fantastic. And then going to visit the community, such a learning experience. They always are, those visits, but again, for the other 5 in my group, their first community visit experience like that. So seeing the things that Imvelo has done there, building the clinic, and the water and the solar and just everything. And then on top of all of that, on top of all of the educational pieces and sitting down and having a conversation, just being able to talk about our lifestyles and how they differ, then going to the market and being, I always enjoy that aspect anyways, the shopping piece, but also, just the work that goes into it, not like anything we can get at home. But being the first visitors that they had to come and shop at their market in months, it was just, it puts a different perspective, I guess, on spending your souvenir dollars. So, we spread out and I think we managed to support most of the people from the village who were there. But I mean, there is no shortage of things that Imvelo does. And I guess the biggest one that I don't know how this has escaped me, but the water pumps, you know, being able to have that experience at Joe's Benini in the lookup blind with the elephants right there is like Gretchen was saying, that the urgency, I guess, at the end of the dry season for them to come and get that water. I mean, that is probably the biggest one for me. And I saw a statistic, or I think maybe Sibs told us a statistic about the 160 million liters of water each year that's pumped through those. It's astounding. I mean, things that we don't have to think about at all. So I always tell my clients when we're planning a safari, you know, you might get sticker shock at the beginning. It's not like any other trip that you're going to do, but your money goes to so much good, and that is certainly the case with Imvelo.
Thank you, Kim. And I think that's definitely 100% accurate in terms of what Imvelo is about and what our guests are contributing to. And, you know, we're very blessed this year to have been able to continue to do so much work in the communities. And it wouldn't be without amazing guests that have already been to visit us, that have continued the support, wonderful donors and philanthropy that have stood through this year beside us. And so, you know, we have a lot to thank for these wonderful friends and family that we've created around the world through them coming to visit us. And this is why guests coming forward, you know, into next year, and that is so critical, because then that allows us to continue to do all this work. Gretchen, I don't know if there was anything that stood up for you.
Just add, you know, I've been lucky to visit Ngamo on a number of occasions, excuse me, and to have the discussion about the level of support that has continued through this year with Hedman Johnson and his wife, and their optimism despite the challenges that they faced this year is really encouraging. It's been a hard year for everyone, and the fact that Imvelo has continued to put so much passion and energy and money behind your community programs is nothing short of inspiring. I think that hasn't been the case across the board. So to see that is very uplifting, and to see them, the community members, you know, continuing to survive and in some cases thrive and look forward to next year and when tourism returns and the benefits that will bring. I mean, it really is a true partnership.
It is.
The way folks talk about it, and it's different. It's different than what you see a lot of other places.
It is. And I really would say, you know, it's so important that that misconception is not there, that the locals on the ground are nervous for guests to come and visit them right now. They are desperate. You know, they're on very, very challenging, difficult financial times. And, you know, they are very much educated and aware about having the protocols in place. But with the low COVID numbers that we do have in Zim, plus everyone having to have the COVID negative test before going in, I feel it is a safe environment, and it is such a worthwhile cause to come and support the local community. So if I can encourage anyone through this to do that next year, you know, that would be wonderful.
Definitely.
So to finish, oh, sorry, carry on. If you.
I was just going to add that even in the village, there were really solid COVID protocols in place. There was a really innovative hand washing station at the entrance to the market. All of the vendors and villagers at the market were wearing masks. We kind of had a low contact social distancing thing in place. It felt as safe as everything else we did, with a level of attention to detail and protocol that I was even pleasantly extra surprised by. So.
Wonderful. Thanks, Gretchen. So to finish off, because I know I've taken a lot of your time this morning, but I really appreciate it. And I'm sure others that listen to this, that are thinking about how to plan safaris and when and how and what to do, I'm hoping this is inspiring for them too. But if you had to describe your trip in one sentence to, you know, give people a bit of a, like, what should they do next, or what should they feel about travel? Just to finish off, what would it be? We'll start with you, Kim.
I'm a rambler, so to give me one sentence is hard, but I will say that this trip was just a perfect exclusive sort of way to end an otherwise challenging year. I could go on, but that's
We'll
my
take
one.
that. Thank you. That's a great sentence. And Gretchen?
I am going to have a theme similar to Kim, and I don't mean to sound so simple, but this refilled my cup. After a year of nothing but depletion, this took me back to where I need to be.
Oh, I love that. You know, sometimes fewer words said all. So I thank you all for that. And I really thank you for your time. It's been so awesome just catching up. I wish we were around a campfire having a G&T, but hopefully in 2021, we can get you guys all back there and we can carry on enjoying Hwange National Park, the bush, the wildlife, the communities that are down there. So thank you very much for jumping on a plane, coming and having a safari with us. And we can't wait to see you guys again soon.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.